This is the Poetic Turn about poetry and poems, and I am Darren Stevens. Who are you?
I'm Evan Carlson.
You've always been Evan Carlson during the entire run of this
I have.
podcast, and there's been no change in that, so don't alarm anybody. We're the same people, Darren and Evan, talking about poems and poetry, and I'm excited to share that we have fans out there, Evan.
Fans out there.
We
Really?
do. I mean, there are a few people that have contacted us. I believe, this is still so new. I've not really reviewed whether things have come through the website or through the Riverside app. So I'm going to review that now. Also, I'm so new to this. Let people know that I have added to the show notes for our last podcast. I would say things like, "Oh, I'll put that in the show notes. Oh, I'll put that in the show notes." And I listened to the podcast yesterday on the way back from somewhere. And I realized I didn't put that in. Oh, I didn't put that in either. So I went back in and I edited just the text of the show notes. So if you're wanting to find out more about the things I talked about on that last podcast, go look at the show notes again.
It's worth a turn back to that
It's
episode.
worth a poetic turn to the last transcript, if you dare. But we have a lovely person that wrote to us, my friend Kim. She said, "Hi, Darren. I want to let you know that I listened to all of the Poetic Turn podcasts, and the Stephen Crane one twice. I love them all." She said, "Any plans to address Edna St. Vincent Millay anytime soon? I'd love to hear you and your colleagues' thoughts." Exclamation point. Kim, thank you so much for the kind comment. I just read a part of it there. She's
Yes,
so kind
thank you.
to comment. Well, as it happens, we're absolutely going to turn to Edna St. Vincent Millay today with three poems, and excited to share them with you.
Our listeners have great power over us.
They do. If you have something you want to hear, we want to do, this is a thing, we haven't actually talked about this off mic, but Evan and I will talk about how we feel about just random people giving us their poems that they wrote, 5 years ago or last week or something like that. I think we're kind of defaulting to poems. Well, we like poems with nice poetic turns. That's something. But I think we have a lot of room. There's so many poets and so many poems. We have a lot to get to before we start doing, like my cousin's poem or something.
Unless it's a really good one.
Well, yeah, my cousin could be Professor Joanne Diaz of Illinois Wesleyan University. Who knows? She happens not to be, but we had such a wonderful poem by her last time. If you haven't heard that podcast, go to Demeter's Last Stand and hear us talk about that poem and read it. But let's get to Edna St. Vincent Millay. And if you're going to have a cool name, you're going to have a name with multiple parts. Pretty darn cool. Edna St. Vincent Millay,
Oh, yeah. It's a great name to have on the head of a book or the top of a poem.
Yeah. So there's a kind of a famous short poem by Millay, and we're going to start by reading that, and then Evan has an idea about how to take in poems and things and deal with them. So this is First Fig. Edna St. Vincent Millay, First Fig. My candle burns at both ends. It will not last the night. But I, my foes, and oh, my friends, it gives a lovely light.
And that's the poem.
That's it. That's the poem.
Yeah.
And so you had an idea, because it's a shorter poem, Evan, you had an idea about how to deal with this.
Yeah. And so I thought that this would be a great example poem, since it is so short. A technique for understanding poems that I learned from Mark Yakic, who wrote a great book, Poetry: A Survivor's Guide. And in that book, he gives this little exercise you can do if you say, I have no idea what this poem is saying. Even when you read it over and over again, it makes no sense. What you can do, and I've found great success doing, is to first, you read the poem, you say, I don't get it. Then you read it super fast as you possibly can. And then you read it super slow. You take a pause between each word. And then you look at it again and see if that did anything. Would it be all right if I did the fast and slow version?
We'd love to have you try that. So with that technique, go ahead.
And I encourage you all to do this at home if you are able. So this is First Fig. My candle burns at both ends, it will not last the night, but on my foes and on my friends it gives a lovely light. So that's the fast version. Now I'm going to do the slow version. My candle burns at both ends. It will not last the night. But my foes and my friends, it gives a lovely light. So
Excellent.
that's fast and slow. And what you might get out of this, for one thing, is in the slow version, in the way we talk, the way we read poems, we don't really have pauses between words. It's one string of vocalizing. And
Yeah.
to do this, to separate every word, you actually have to pay attention to each one, which sometimes when we're reading out loud or when we're talking to somebody, there are some words that get lost. And so, like in that one, I, even though it's short and, I've read it and taken it in, reading it slowly, I thought, oh, it's foes and friends. Those stood out to me a lot more because
Uh-huh.
I'd been brushing over the foes part because it's in the middle of a line, but it's these two things in opposition. I don't know. What did you think about that, Darren?
Yeah, yeah. I like that as an exercise and as a way to kind of connect with things. I think for me, what that does is it really burns the images in your head a little bit. We really get candle burns. We just really, and poetry is so often about images and crafting of images and crafting of metaphor that slower read really helps you concentrate on that. Honestly, just even in the voiceover business, reading things fast, just doing a quick read. If I'm working with coaching clients, I'll have them read it first just to get the words in their head, just to get familiar with it, because you get more connected to the copy. You understand it more, you get more connected to the copy every time you go through it. So that first read, that counts. That's one time
Yeah.
through.
It's like a speed run of getting just a little bit more familiar with it. And then the slow one, I mean, you can also relish the words.
Yeah,
Like the
yeah,
word lovely,
yeah,
particularly, it was longer to say than almost any other word in the poem. And
yeah.
so lovely really stood out to me because as I said it, I was like, this is the word in here.
Excellent.
Lovely. So,
Well, for our fans and friends and listeners, try that perhaps with a poem that you don't feel as connected to,
yeah.
and
Great
you'll
with poems you might hate.
yeah. That's a good idea. This poem just drives me mad, or I don't like it, or I yeah, just give it that treatment and see what happens.
You can pretend you're a bird picking it apart word by word.
Deservedly so. It deserves to be picked apart. Okay, we're going to go into some other. We've got a couple other Edna St. Vincent Millay poems here. On the poetic turn, we usually focus on one poem. We read one poem, we talk about it, then we read it again. Today we're going to celebrate this poet, this classic poet, by sharing a total of three of her poems. And the next two poems we have, there's kind of a way that they relate, which hopefully you'll pick up on. But this poem is called "Pity Me Not Because the Light of Day." Pity me not because the light of day at close of day no longer walks the sky. Pity me not for beauties passed away from field and thicket as the year goes by. Pity me not the waning of the moon, nor that the ebbing tide goes out to sea, nor that a man's desire is hushed so soon, and you no longer look with love on me. This have I known always, love is no more than the wide blossom which the wind assails, than the great tide that treads the shifting shore, strewing fresh wreckage gathered in the gales. Pity me that the heart is slow to learn what the swift mind beholds at every turn.
Very nice. And love the end on turn.
Yes, we talked about last podcast about the word surprise, the word turn. The word surprise comes into poems. The actual words appear in poems from time to time, and there's an example right there.
And there are some turns in here.
There,
What made you want to read this poem, Darren?
well, of all her poems, and of course she's written many, I connected to it more strongly. I felt like I kind of understood it. Um, pretty clearly. Some of her language and her other work is a little bit antiquated, takes a little more work to connect to, and this one not so. I also love the turn in it, and it's just heartbreaking, a heartbreaking turn. And of course, dear listeners, we'll put this in the show notes, and I'll absolutely include a link to this in the show notes. And I encourage you to look at it and look at that turn. We see that right there with and you no longer look. So she's pity me not, pity me not. She's talking to us, the listeners, and then we hear, and you no longer look with love on me, with a period.
Yeah, that is something. That major turn, it's right there in the middle, and there's a lone sentence there. A really powerhouse of a sentence as well.
Very good point, Evan. That's the one sentence with a period on the end. It's right there in the middle.
It's one line, one sentence, and that's something that is worth looking into as well, as where do the sentences start and end. And so here it's like it's one breath, one thought that just gives the big shift, this big swerve.
Yeah, and what love is, the wonderful metaphors for what love is. It's just this casual, capricious thing. It just the wide blossom which the wind assails, great tide that treads a shifting shore, strewing fresh wreckage. It just so.
And then there's another turn at the end with shifting from pity me not to pity me, that the heart is slow to learn, what the swift mind beholds at every turn.
Pity me not to pity me, yeah.
And so it's sometimes poems do have multiple turns, or as sort of like we talked about last week, they could be slow turns that finally shift to the end.
As Professor Tooney said, the radius of a turn.
Yeah. And I don't know. I love looking at last lines of poems and this one, I just love it. What the swift mind beholds at every turn. First lines and last.
Pity me that the heart is slow to learn what the swift mind beholds at every turn. So she's talking about her great love, and thought is so swift, but the heart is so slow. Heartbreaking.
So I don't really know much about Edna St. Vincent Millay. Do you have any quick facts about her? Or
she was iconoclastic, it seems to me. Just really her own person. Really, she'd be called kind of progressive and open-minded and forward-thinking.
Yeah, it seems like she was sort of a bit of a pivot herself in the world of writing from sort of the modernists into what we have now.
I got that impression as well. But I'm so glad that my friend Kim brought this to us because, there's so many ways. When you have a poet that's been around for a long time or a classic poet like this, there's just a lot to look at, a lot to maybe decide, well, this one's not for me. Oh, but this one over here is, too.
Yeah.
So if you read a couple of poems from a poet and they don't grab you, maybe look for some other things.
Because there are a lot of other things.
There are a lot of other... in poetry as in life, Evan, there are so many things.
Yeah, but we hope you don't put it down forever. But should I get on to the next poem here?
We have our last Edna St. Vincent Millay poem.
The trifecta.
Yeah, we're doing a trifecta today of beautiful poems by Edna St. Vincent Millay. Whenever you're ready, Evan.
This is Oh, you will be sorry for that word. Oh, you will be sorry for that word. Give back my book and take my kiss instead. Was it my enemy or my friend I heard? What a big book for such a little head. Come, I will show you now my newest hat, and you may watch me purse my mouth and prink. I shall love you still, and all of that. I never again shall tell you what I think. I shall be sweet and crafty, soft and sly. You will not catch me reading any more. I shall be called a wife to pattern by. And some day, when you knock and push the door, some sane day, not too bright and not too stormy, I shall be gone, and you may whistle for me.
So that poem gives some character, the character of Edna St. Vincent Millay.
Yes. Now this is great. It's got It's got such a punch to it.
Yeah. And the rhymes are not, I'm just noticing, it does rhyme, but they don't seem heavy handed. We don't get a kalunkety, kunkety, kunkety, clunk kind of rhyme. It really felt conversational as you read it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and rhyming sometimes, sometimes it feels like it's imposed on the poem and really throws things off a little because they just had to get the rhyme in. But in a poem like this, I love that it does sort of help it move forward and
Yeah.
maybe gives a bit of cleverness to it.
Hopefully, we will have on the podcast the founder of poetry slams in the world, a guy named Mark Smith, who started poetry slams with the Uptown Poetry Slam, or the Green Mill Poetry Slam at the Green Mill in Chicago, famous bar that dates back to Al Capone's time. And I encourage everyone to go to the Green Mill Poetry Slam. One of the things, people bring in their poetry to read, and these are new poets and not as experienced often, and they talk about if someone has a rhyming poem, it's really fun for the audience to go ahead and say the rhyme before the poet reads it. And watch their face. They make fun of really, really obvious rhymes, and maybe it's a bit cruel, but that's kind of a performance poetry kind of a thing.
Yeah.
At the Green Mill Poetry Slam, and I'll put a link to the slam in our show notes. But it's always a great show, especially when Mark Smith, the founder, runs the show, which he does the third Sunday of every month.
Well, this one, I think I love that idea of trying to figure out the rhyme before they say it, because that's where surprise is so important in poetry, because if it's just so expected that it's about to happen, sometimes it gets boring. Maybe that's the point, though. But this last one, I love, again, these last two lines. Some sane day, not too bright, and not too stormy, I shall be gone, and you may whistle for me. And you could say it, some sane day, not too bright and not too stormy, I shall be gone, and you may whistle for me. And you still have the echo of the rhyme in there a little bit, but you don't always have to read it exactly rhyme.
Have to accept the rhyme, the poet's rhyme scheme perfectly.
Because you can feel it in the background, and maybe that reading of it, that sort of uncomfortable, unfulfilled rhyme, sort of gives it a bit of a kick as well.
Yeah, good point. I like that. Some same day, not too bright, not too stormy. You may whistle for me. I thought that was that's fun. But yeah, there's an argument, a contestation.
Yeah.
If you're fighting it a little bit, you may whistle for me.
Yeah, well, because for me, that does sort of intensify it a bit, because if it's for me, for is the word that you're emphasizing there. Just an example of, it can be fun to play around with how you say a poem, because the first time you read it isn't the only way that you have to read it.
Yeah. And if you like it, you can revisit it again and again. A little vocabulary thing here. So when you go to our show notes and read this poem for yourself, when you see the word prink, that's an old-fashioned word, and I've got a definition for it here. It means to make small changes to an object or your appearance. As in, he prinked himself in front of the mirror. Prink and preen. She spent the day wrapping gifts, unpacking boxes of new deliveries, and generally prinking and preening the stock. Or she was prinked and painted like an expensive doll. So it's kind of a...
I didn't know that. I read the poem, and I just, I sort of brushed past it and thought, well, I must be inferring something. But that is good. I'll have to incorporate that in my lexicon.
Well, it's a word that sounds like what it is, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm going to be prissy. I'm going to be prim. I'm going to prink and pose. Yeah.
And it helps with the rhyme.
It does indeed. And I love, we had Pity Me Not Because of the Light of Day, her broken heart, her slow broken heart, and her swift mind, and then she gets her own back. She almost gets revenge. Oh yeah, you know what? If you're going to be that kind of man that is disrespectful of women or disrespectful of me, I might be out of here. Bye-bye.
Yeah. How does it, when you start noticing connections between a poet's poems, how does that feel?
Well, that felt really good to me. And this is a podcast. I'm diving much more into poetry than I ever have in my life with this podcast. And so I just happened to find two Edna St. Vincent Millay poems that seemed to be a good fit to kind of echo each other or comment on each other. Again, as I say on the Poetic Turn, we usually do one poem, but I just saw those two and I thought, oh, what if they went together in our podcast?
Yeah.
So,
No, I think it's great because it is fun when you start. You feel like you're in the mind of the poet a little bit, and you're like, these have to do with one another.
well, I hope I can get in the mind of the poet, or just connecting more to poetry as I am with the podcast and with the things you've shown me, Evan, and poems you sent to me.
Well, now you've shown me, because I had never read any of her poetry before preparing for this episode, so I appreciate it.
Well, I'd not read much, so this is pretty new to me as well. And we thank my friend Kim. Thank you, Kim.
Yes,
so
thank you,
much.
Kim.
Thanks for being a fan and a friend. And this has been fun. There's so many great poets out there. For a podcast like ours, yes, public domain poets have a certain advantage in some respects, but we also have friends who are poets and professors who are poets. So we're going to have a wide range of people on the podcast. We're going to celebrate a wide range of poetry. You might hear, I was with a group on vacation last week, and someone mentioned limericks. Are there any limericks on your podcast? As it happens, no, there are not as yet. Now, who's to say, Evan? What do you think?
I've got a history with limericks.
Dear, like a good history or a bad?
We can bring them on the podcast, but that when I was a substitute teacher for a sixth grade English class, the English curriculum really thinks that kids will only like limericks.
Really, in that school, that the only poetry you can give a young person is a limerick?
Well, you have to start with that because they think that it'll excite them. But
it's gateway literature, Evan.
Yeah, and it might have been one day, but the kids I was with they were much more interested when the poet Diego Baez I got to bring in to the class, and he had some more contemporary and identity related things that they really connected with that the limericks didn't quite get to. But we can do some limericks.
Well, there are so many men from Nantucket, and
yes. Well, I had to define what is Nantucket. They didn't know what Nantucket was. The fun of limericks died a little bit for me.
That's so funny. Oh, yeah, when you're brought low by a wait, you mean Paul McCartney was in another band before Wings? Wait a minute. Wait, who's Paul McCartney? No, so I don't know. Maybe our audience, to say again, as we've said the podcast before, Evan is 24. I'm 66. So there's a wide range of poetry and thought between our time periods.
Yeah.
It's there's plenty out there. Like we'll probably say this maybe other times in the podcast. There are many things, and
there are many.
Deal with them one by one.
Walt Whitman says that we contain multitudes.
We do, individually and collectively.
Yes, indeed.
Well, Evan, it's always great hanging out with you, my friend.
Yeah, this has been terrific.
And thank you again, Kim. And if you haven't done so already, please like and share. Tell your friends about the Poetic Turn. I'll have stuff in the show notes, I promise, this time that we discussed today. And hope to see you. Hope to have you listening another time.
Yes, thank you.